We're going to continue on our journey. For those of you who weren't here the last couple of weeks, I'll let you know, but it's a book I'm using by Reverend Charlene Manuel, The Metaphysics of Shoes. There's a lot more to it than just shoes, as you'll find out as we move on today. She wrote this book, and for those who heard here before, she wrote this book because she had a love for shoes. And everybody's asking, why are you always shopping for shoes? Why do you like shoes so much? And she really wasn't sure at that point when she was asked that question, so she started to delve into it. And what came forth is this book, when she really thought about what it meant to buy shoes and to love shoes and to understand it and the metaphysics of it. And if we know what a metaphysics means to look beyond what's visibly in front of us, to look inside of ourselves of why we do things. What is our consciousness? What is our mind leading us to do? Because we know each step we take, whether in shoes or out of shoes, is a step in direction that is guided by God, that inner being within you. So choose your shoes, the right shoes for each situation. Dig deeper into the messages that their shoes have, instead of just getting up in the morning and picking up a pair of shoes and walking out of the door. Think about why you put them on. Not that you could afford them, of why you put them on a deeper level. So we first started this journey with the first story is about baby shoes, and the story about the young single mother who raised her child and bronzed her baby's shoes. And then last week we talked about the lady in her dancing shoes, and we talked about Let's Dance, and she was a dancer. She had gone through a divorce, and she had to pick herself up and move forward. And this week we're talking about, I called it Move to the Beat of Your Soul, but it's called A Man and His Gaiters. Anybody know what gaiters are? I didn't until I read the story. Alligator shoes, yes. A man and his gator. Here is this man. Here's the story that she shared. It's a man, he walks into a club one night. He's dressed to the nth, as they say. Tailored suit, gator shoes, with elegance, with presence. And it's like he vibrates, like his feet had a soul of their own as he walked into this club. He claimed attention. And everybody in the club then turned around and looked at this guy. Of course, guys would look at him with envy because he looked really good. He was, he exercised, his suit fit him well. And all the women's attention were taken from them onto this guy. And they were all the women were looking like, ooh, fantasy guy. And the men were looking like, who's that guy? And he walked in and he strutted. And he moved through this club. And he smiled at everyone. And he looked them in the eye. And each woman was saying, I hope he picks me, I hope he picks me. This is a dance club, I hope he picks me because he looks good. His steps were slow and deliberate. Gave everybody a chance to look. Now, through the minds of humans, some are saying who he think he is, some are saying he looks good, some are saying what's going on here, and all these different things are going on as they watch this man walk through this dance club. And he walks up to one of the beautiful women in the club, and he puts his hand out. And he graciously put his hand out. And he took her to the center of the dance floor. He stood there, and he looked her in the eye. And she smiled, and she's like, I got picked. And he did the unthinkable. He left her in the middle of the floor. He walked off, and he went to another lady, and he put his hand out. And he walked her to the floor, and he stood her beside lady number one. Lady number two is like, yeah, I got picked too. Lady number one's going, now what's going on here? Everybody's watching this going on. And he didn't stop with those two, proceeded to get 4 other women. And he lined them up on the dance floor. And they looked like trophies because they're all beautiful women standing in the middle of this dance floor. And here's this classy looking guy, and what is he doing? Everybody's quiet, the music's playing in the background, and he's putting these women there, and they're going, what's going to happen next? And as he got the last woman there, the sixth woman there, guess what song started to play? Michael Jackson's Billie Jean. And he started to dance, and he started to move. And he had all the moves, and all the women just said, oh, whatever, I'm going to dance too. This guy can dance. And they all were like a choreographed dance. And they were moving in the floor, and everybody just watched and were like in amazement, like, did they know each other? Did they choreograph this? What's going on here? The guy knew what he was doing. He had it on, as they say. And he danced that full dance, and then the music ended. And everybody's like, okay, what's going to happen next? It's got 6 women out there, what's going on? And the gentleman that he was, he turned to lady number 6 and number 5, and he took one on each hand, and he walked them back to their seats. And he came back, and he took number 4 and number 3, and he walked them back to their seats. But when it came to the last 2, he took number 2 back to her seat, and number 1 is still standing there. And everybody's watching. Some people had come onto the dance floor as the music played, and he put his hand out to this lady, held her in a ballroom step, and the music that came on was Unforgettable by Nat King Cole. And they danced it like professional dancers and commanded the floor. And those who had gotten up to dance got back, went and sat back down and watched these 2. They became as one. And people are just watching, like, wow, what is going on here? This guy is smooth. He's got it on. And then the song ended. And everybody's watching again. And he took the lady and he walked her back to her seat. He nodded his head, he smiled at everyone, and he left the club. Interesting story. I'm sure each one of us have a different idea about this guy and a different thought about, depending on how we live through our lives and our experiences with people, we have different thoughts about this guy. But remember, this guy never said a word. He was a perfect gentleman. He put his hand out. He smiled. He had grace. From that, I pulled his inner power. He had an inner power. How many people can walk into a dance club and command it without saying a word? Without saying a word. He had to be confident. He had to be sure of himself. He had to know who he was, and I say he had to know who he was in God, as it says in Jeremiah 17:7. But blessed is the one who trusts the Lord, whose confidence is in him. He had to be confident in God, strong in his inner spirit to be able to do that, and have everyone still smiling, and all the women feeling honored that they were able to be a part of that story that unfolded that day. And also in, Ephesians 3:16, I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through the spirit of your inner being. His inner being was strengthened with the presence of God. Does God speak to you? There is that still small voice. What happens when we speak words? Think about that. What happens when we speak words? God speaks to us. And when we stop and we listen, we are guided in a direction that is the right direction for us. And we move through it with grace and with ease. But when we shut off the silence of those words, we move in a different place, and it may not be with grace and with ease. This guy, he had the talents. He had all those talents within him. We call them the 12 powers. Sometimes he symbolized all of his spiritual gifts. And his spiritual gifts of life, love, truth, substance, intelligence, faith, power, judgment, will. He had all the gifts of spirit within him. And he used them with confidence and inner power. So what are the soul thoughts that we get from that story? As we think of this guy who walks into this club and doesn't say a word. Actions speak louder than words. Many of us say that to many people. I'd rather you do it than say it. Because you've said it so many times and I haven't seen anything happening. I would rather you just go do it, right? Haven't we all said that at least some point in our life to someone in our lives? Actions speak louder than words. This man had the actions, and they spoke a lot louder than any words. And so what are words? And what do words do? They distract from a lot of things. Imagine if he walked in there and said, "Hey, I'm here," with all his classes. Who would have seen his suit and his alligator shoes? They're like, "Oh, here." Because they heard the words. Or if he randomly said a whole lot of things, people wouldn't have paid attention as much. Or his tone of voice, or the way in which he spoke, or anything would have distracted you from what was going on. And that's why God speaks to us in a still, small voice. So that there is no distractions. You only hear him. You only see his power. Revealing word says words, or spiritual words, are words that abide in man's consciousness. His consciousness was in tune with God. His whole inner being was in tune with God. Therefore, he didn't have to speak. As we say, just show up. Show up in the presence of God. And I found this verse that I really liked, and it says in Deuteronomy 4:36, "From heaven he made you hear his voice to discipline you. On earth he showed you his great fire, and you heard his words from out of the fire." Think of that. It might sound like it's a little bit off. Think of someone who is a dancer. Like I danced all of my life, and there is discipline and all the things that it takes to become a good dancer. This gentleman had done all the work, the foundation work. He had heard God's voice come through him to give him the discipline to do what he needed to do. And it showed up in a great fire, as we could say. His fire was his presence. He commanded the stage, as they would say. It's like a fire stops people, and we all stop and look. He was that great fire, and we heard his words through the fire. He didn't have to speak a word. Think of that. Think of how that translates for you in your life. When have you stood up at some point in your life and commanded the attention that is your birthright? Not with words, but with your presence. And with that presence of God. As we know, there is more to every one of us than meets the eye, right? I can look at you and say, "Look at her, she dresses really great. Look, everything matches and looks beautiful." But there's so much more to Sandy than what she has on the outside. It's so much more to Beverly and each one of you than what I see right here, because for me, I see the light of God in each of you. But I don't know all the other insides. I don't hear your thoughts. I don't want to, but think about that. When you see somebody and you make a quick judgment call on what you see, think of the inner person. See beyond the outer and see that Christ light. This young man, he valued his appearance. Yes, that's why he dressed the way he did. And he put on his shoes. He had fashion, but he wore it with grace. His actions, yes, were daring and a bit unorthodox, but he was a perfect gentleman. Correct? He didn't do anything bad, as we would say. He had tapped into his inner power. And he brought it forth authentically. How many of us live authentically who take the mask off? Who have one mask in their house, one mask with that group of friends, one mask with that group of people? How many of us live authentically in every part of our lives? Spiritual work has to take place for us to do that. For us to show up completely attached to the presence of God, where our fullness of who we are shows up every time. And the self-confidence of knowing who we are through meditation and prayer shows up every step of the way. And we use that first commandment, seek God first in all that we do, so that we can release any mass. So this man, that's a pair of gaiters. He had his gaiter shoes on. So how do we build that self-confidence that he has? Many of us have it. As you get older, you get the wisdom and the self-confidence. It kind of comes with the territory. But when we were younger, sometimes we didn't. But there are different ways of building that self-confidence. And it reminded me of this week. I was at work, and I was sitting in the lunchroom by myself as usual, reading my book from my phone and eating my lunch. And when the senior guy, Steve Later from Markel in Virginia, came down, he says, "Oh, you're all by yourself." And I said to him, "I'm never by myself. I am so comfortable in my own skin that it doesn't matter if a person's here or not." I said to him, "I can see out that window, see all those boats? I'm with those boats, I'm sailing." And he says, "You know, that's the best thing you would want everybody to answer." He says, "You answered that the best way." He says, "Because you are never alone, and you're never by yourself. There is an inner being within me, that self-confidence within me, that doesn't need that physical being beside me to be the fullness of God that I am. I can travel on a plane by myself and speak to people I don't know, because they are a part of the oneness and power of God. So I'm not alone or by myself at any point. I have that self-confidence, and each of us have self-confidence on our own. It's a part of us, it's a core of us, it's a fiber of us. God inherently gave it to you when you were born. How you choose to manifest it is your choice. So you can get your self-confidence either directly or indirectly. Now, to directly get your self-confidence like this young gentleman did, is to intentionally direct your thoughts and words in a positive way. And that's what we talk about in Unity all the time. Look for the positive. Direct your thoughts to the positive, even though the outer looks all wishy-washy. And like it was Halloween last night, you saw people with all these masks on. You didn't see the mask, you saw the person. When they opened their mouth and they smiled, even though they had a ghoul on their face or whatever, you saw the person behind the mask. Allow yourself to always look beyond that and see the positive, and you will become a master of your inner world. You have high quality thoughts all the time, and this lays that groundwork, that foundation of personal growth. As we say, change your thoughts, change your life, or change your world. That's direct self-confidence, when we have command of our mind. And as it says, it's Proverbs 23:7, "For as he thinketh in his heart, so it is. As he thinketh in his heart, so it is." So what about indirect self-confidence? I remember when I first came to Unity, they said, "Fake it till you make it." Or what was the other one they used to say here? That wasn't fake it. Sandy told me. Do you remember what it was? Yeah, it was one similar to fake it till you make it. And I used to go, huh? Why would you want to fake something? But the premise behind that, or the idea behind it, was to wisely and consciously develop what it is you needed to get where you wanted. If that's what you had to do to get there, the only problem with fake it till you make it is people kind of stay there. They get stuck in the fake it mode. And they don't move on with the personal growth of moving forward. The key to it, if you need to use it to get through any situation in self-confidence, is to don't linger there, because it limits you in your life and in your personal growth. So be like this guy with his gaiters on. As he thinketh in his heart, so it is. His appearance is important for all of us. Our appearance is important. We get up each morning, we put on the clothing that enhance who we are that day and in that moment. Other people form opinions about it in whatever way they want, but you claim who you are in your outer and in your inner. And I like this sentence that she used in the book. It says, remember, think about the portrait inside a picture frame. The portrait within inside a picture frame affects the overall appeal and the price assigned to it. Think about that. Here's a picture of you. You're smiling. And all of that is showing up. And then you assign a price to it if you're a photographer. But the person's about to buy it and they meet the actual person in the picture who's like this. Huh? I didn't want to do that. Do they really want to pay the price that you put on that picture? They just met the outer. That was the inner being revealed in that picture. Frozen in time was that inner light of God was showing there through that smile. But the outer keeps showing all the time, and they haven't personally grown to combine them and make it as one and be the picture and assign the correct price, which only gets higher and higher, not just in currency, but in personal power and in consciousness. So be that snapshot that people see. You understand it? Yes. Be the snapshot that you say, that's my favorite picture. Be it. That's who you are at the core of you. Let it shine. So what is the extraordinary soul step for today? And I always pick up my little cat looking in the mirror and he sees a lion. This is about your confidence. With every effort we make to bring into alignment our authentic inner with our legitimate outer, we stand to present an extraordinary display of personal power that demonstrates the best of who we are. Let's say that together. With every effort we make to bring into alignment our authentic inner with our legitimate outer, we stand to present an extraordinary display of personal power that demonstrates the best of who we are. Do we agree with that? Yes. The best of who we are when we combine the inner and outer. We have that power, and that power is that innate control we have to control our hearts and our minds and our thoughts and our feelings. Use it. Move to the beat of your soul. Let that inner soul move you through life. You have your own personal rhythm. Move with it. Let the soul that you move with be positive, powerful, confident, and true. And always know that actions speak louder than words. Be the person you say you are. And if you continue to say it and don't do it, switch it around. Don't say anything and do it. And remember, there is more to anyone you see than meets the eye. Look in the mirror of their soul and see the greatness of who they are. And she puts up a few questions from the book, If the Shoe Fits. And here are some this week. Oh, I forgot to send them out last week. I'll send you the questions this week. And you can think about them. Number one, in what ways have you worked to discipline your thoughts and words towards developing your inner power? In what ways? In Unity we do meditation and prayer. There are so many other ways to discipline your thoughts and your words to develop your inner power. Anybody else have any other ways that they like to do? I know Beverly likes gardening. So gardening is her way to develop her inner, because she gets peaceful. We get peaceful when we're digging in soil. And we all have different. Anybody else have one they want to share that they can think of? Swimming? Yeah. Swimming is a great way. You let your mind flow with the water. These are ways to develop your inner power. And the inner power is that control we have over our minds, our thoughts and our feelings. The next question is, when you dress to impress, which I'm sure we do every day, right? Because we know who we are, we accept who we are in the fullest. So we dress to impress every day ourselves first, right? So when you dress to impress, what inner preparation do you make to carry the impression beyond the outer appearance? You got up, you put on something that really made you feel good. You looked in that mirror and you said, hey, I look good. And you walk out the door and you got that confidence shining, and somebody says, where you get that outfit? I don't like it. How do you feel now? Now, if you dress to impress yourself, does it matter what they said? No. Because we are sure who we are. And this outer that I'm wearing today is a part of my inner, because I'm all as one. And so no matter what you say, doesn't make any difference. Because the power that I have over my thoughts and my feelings are connected to God. And therefore, I'm still looking good. No matter what you say, I'm still looking good. And another 2 questions just before we end. I got to move the screen up. Number 3, describe someone you know who has tapped into his or her personal power and who exhibits what appears to be an authentic sense of self with legitimate talents and skills. Anybody have anybody they can think of? I have a lot of dancing friends. They're very talented and they're very authentic, and they show it with their skills. Anybody think of anybody who could be like that guy and walk into a place without saying a word and command? Can't you do it? Is it you? Can it be you?
Potentially.
Potentially. Ah. Yeah, think about it. Can you be like that guy in your own way? You don't have to do the alligator shoes, of course. But you be your authentic self and walk into a place of strangers. Let's put it that way. And show up as a true child of God, proud, not, I don't know if they see me. Do I look okay? But walking in proudly with your head up, with a smile on your face, showing the world the essence of who you are. Be that person. You don't have to think about anybody else. Find you in that question and show up as your authentic self. And the last one I have is, what would be an extraordinary step in your life right now toward harnessing your authentic personal power? And if you have maybe or possibility, what could you do to shift that? To show up authentically every time? Think about those words. Put on your gator shoes if that's what you need. Put on something that makes you feel real good on the outer, because sometimes we have to do that, and shift our day or shift our mind. Or do something that brings a smile to your face, and find your authentic self in that moment. And then take that moment through every moment throughout that day, and consciously and intentionally direct your thoughts into the positive. And your self-confidence will grow until one day you just step out into the world. So if the shoe fits, wear it.